Canberra for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Thursday, January 10th. Hey, today I thought I'd share with you some things that you should not do while you're in the process of getting a mortgage. Now this, I've seen it happen a lot of times, so I thought I'd share with you some of the common things I've run across from time to time. From the time you get your mortgage approved, from the time that the mortgage closes and you take possession of your new house, and a lot of times this is very much applicable to people getting, let's say, new homes, because there's always a lag time in between from the time they originally write the offer, we get the financing, and they close on it. So some of the things people wind up doing: getting a new car loan. Yes, don't do that. If you're in the process of getting a mortgage or you've been approved a certain way, do not take on more debt. This is something that people don't sometimes realize. They go, hey, well, you know what, I just didn't really think about that. And the reason you don't do this is that some of the lenders will pull your credit once again. Depending on how long ago your approval was from the time you actually close on that mortgage, they will do that. So you don't suddenly want to have new debt show up. By the same token, if you've got a credit line or something that you were approved with in place, and let's say it had a very minimal balance, I hope you don't go on a spending spree in between. So don't rack up that credit line going, well, you know what, they've approved me. Hey, what's the big deal now? No, you don't want to be doing that. Another thing you don't want to be doing is co-signing for someone in between. Yes, I've had that before, where a client went out and they basically co-signed a car loan for her sister. Not a good idea, because all of a sudden this new debt shows up, and that makes it pretty hard. The other thing to keep in mind also is if, for example, you've been, let's say, saving up money, because sometimes with the lenders you're going to obviously have a down payment requirement, and you may be somebody who's been working towards saving money, and all of a sudden, if you pull that out, or you pull that out of a different account, or you move all this money around, or suddenly you've got a lump sum coming in, the lender's going to ask some questions, especially if we hadn't had that part of it met. Now, typically, we will make sure that the down payment requirements have all been met prior to you removing subjects. But if there's anything funny like that, or a large influx of money suddenly coming in, or something like that, tell your mortgage broker, tell whoever you're working with up front what's going on, because you don't suddenly want to have that as a surprise. Another thing that you don't want to do is go on holidays during the closing of your mortgage. I had that happen with a client once before. They had their house deal closing, and they had done everything with us, but for some reason they had forgotten they still needed to see the lawyer and needed to see some other people, and had booked a vacation during that time when the mortgage was actually going to close. They figured, you know what, they could just do something via fax or whatever. No, it doesn't work that way. So you want to make yourself definitely available for that sort of thing. The other thing you don't want to be doing is, after your mortgage is approved, let's say suddenly quitting your job. Not exactly a brilliant idea. I know it can happen where sometimes you could get fired or something like that. And again, like I said, depending on the timeline, the lender doesn't always recheck these things, and sometimes some lenders will call even a week prior to your closing. They'll double check your employment, those sorts of things. So if suddenly your boss annoys you and you get PO'd at him, not a good time to quit that employment, okay? So these are just some of the things. I know they would sound like they're common sense or whatever else, but you definitely want to make sure that you don't do these things. Another thing is, don't lend your down payment to someone else. I know, again, sounds silly. People sometimes forget. They go, hey, you know what, I've got 2-3 months, I've got the money, so I'm going to lend cousin Larry some money in between, and then he promised he's going to pay me right back, and then I'll have it in time for closing of my mortgage. Don't do that. Whatever you've got set aside, make sure that that plan, nothing basically comes along to deter that. Because once you have a legal binding contract on the purchase of a property, you've got to close on it. So you can't suddenly change your mind with that sort of thing, okay? So these are just important things that you definitely have to keep in mind when you're doing this sort of thing and you're borrowing money. And I know that people sometimes, like I said, they get sidetracked by these things. They forget about these things. These are very important things to keep in mind. And they can cause your deal to go off the rails. Usually when we have a quick close, that's a deal that's closing, let's say, within 30 days, is not as much of an issue, obviously, because everything's been already confirmed, verified, and everything's done pretty much up front. But when the deal does have a tendency to drag out for some time, lenders have the prerogative to sometimes pull your credit again, do a job call again, and you know, these things can come up, and we certainly don't want to have a last-minute surprise. Anyway, just some things that I thought I'd share with you and give you some tips. And again, of course, if you ever need anything mortgage-wise, don't hesitate to give us a call. It's Cam, the mortgage man. At the Auxilium team, we're always here and happy to help. As you know, rates are still record lows. We're still getting approvals done in spite of the new regulations. You've probably heard that nobody's getting mortgages. That's not true. People are still able to get mortgages. They're just a lot more challenging and a lot more hoops to jump through. Anyway, it's Cam. I will see you tomorrow.